Sometimes we have a conflict between nature and science, particularly when we're talking about the period of the 1800s, mid-1800s to later 1800s, when people like Poe, Hawthorne, Melville were writing. Hawthorne mentions this conflict between nature and science with the railroad that went near his house, and he felt it was a great interruption to his thought process to have this hooting, horrid railroad go by as he was trying to think about his writing. Dickinson, in one of her poems, mentions the same horrid, hooting sort of railroad. Poe had some particular issues with science as well, and in fact the whole of the Romantics tended to view science with some bit of skepticism at times, and really a concern about whether it was really benefiting us or not. And part of the reason for that, particularly from Poe's perspective, is that science pushed aside much of the mythology and the mystery that was associated with Romantic writing. So what was there to write about if science was going to answer all of our questions, if there was no more mystery in life? And this was part of Poe's concern. And there is a bit of conflict there, as you'll see, with many of these Romantic period writers and science itself. Poe, in fact, was inspired to write a poem that he calls Sonnet to Science. And we're going to look at that for a few minutes today, and this conflict between Romanticism with someone like Poe and science as he knew it in his day. Science, true daughter of old time thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes, who preyest thou thus upon the poet's heart, vulture whose wings are dull realities. So from the Romantics' viewpoint, the factual conception of things from a scientific viewpoint is just a dull reality. There's no mystery. There's no intrigue left anymore. Everything's been sorted out in a very scientific method and has lost its interest for him. How should he love thee, or how deem thee wise? Who wouldst not leave him in his wandering to seek for treasure in the jeweled skies, albeit he soared with an undaunted wing? Hast thou not dragged Diana from her car? What does he mean by that? Well, the goddess Diana, her car probably refers to the moon here. In other words, mythology, the goddess Diana doesn't really exist, science would tell us. And this, of course, for Poe is perhaps true, but an entirely uninteresting fact. And driven the hamadryad from the wood, the hamadryad, the spirit of the tree spirits. And again, science would say, well, there are no such things as tree spirits. And Poe would say, I liked it better when we thought there were tree spirits. This is part of what makes the mystery of life worth living. To seek a shelter in some happier star, hast thou not torn the naiad from her flood, the elfin from the green grass, and from me the summer dream beneath the tamarind tree? So what he's saying is that science is tearing apart mythology, is tearing apart all the mystery in life by providing answers. So while he was not totally anti-science, he was anti-science from the viewpoint of science removing mystery from life and leaving us with what he called the dull realities that were left. This was not enough for someone like Poe, someone writing in the Romantic view of things, who loved mystery, who loved intrigue, who loved surmising about what might happen, what could happen, the way things work in life. And once all the mystery is taken out of life, then we have, from Poe's perspective, very little left. And what we do have left has no interest.